Welcome in to First Things First. I'm Sarah Cris, filling in for Jenna Wolfe.
Monday?
I mean, we're here.
Who was responsible for this?
I don't know. This whole time, has Jenna been bringing the coffee and nobody told us?
Thanks, Christine. I got coffee and I have water. My partners have nothing. Brian?
We'll get to it. That's Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This is Nick Wright.
Sweeping the hallways to make sure Sarah got to her seat okay. You ain't getting no beverage. Brian?
Go ahead, Sarah. We're off and running, America.
Ready? We're ready, Monday
Yeah, we're ready. Let's do it.
All right, we got so much to get to today, but we are going to start with Sunday Night Football. Two great quarterbacks facing off. Of course, Aaron Rodgers taking on Tom Brady in Foxborough. And the game was tied at 17 in the fourth when Aaron Jones fumbles. This would prove to be costly. And later in the fourth, Julian Edelman, look at that, finds James White on the double pass. White would score 3 plays later. New England goes up 24-17. Next Pats possession, Brady finds Josh Gordon for the 55-yard touchdown. And then Brady finished with just under 300 yards and a touchdown as the Pats win their 6th in a row. Packers fall to 3-4-1. And here's Brady after the game.
We made some plays in the fourth quarter when we needed to. And anytime you beat a good football team, it feels good. So 7-2 is it's a long ways from 1-2 where we were. We strung together a lot of wins playing good football, and we got to keep it going.
We're not hitting on all cylinders. We're hurting ourselves with negative yardage plays and missed throws and turnovers at the wrong time and not being on the same page too many times. Whether I'm missing a throw or we're not in the spot I think we're going to be at, it's happening in the worst times. When we have to play our best in those crunch times, we haven't been playing our best.
Nick, I have an important question to get to, but were they wearing the same cap?
It sure looked like it. They both had on the same black Scully. That was an odd look for both of them.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be doing it for free if it was the same one.
All right, what was the key to the Patriots beating the Packers without also Gronk and Sony Michel?
Last night it was coaching. Last night it was Bill Belichick and the Patriots coaching staff. For so long, we've had a Brady versus Belichick. Who's more important? Who's the real star of this dynasty? And they're really inextricably tied. Yesterday and all week leading up to the game, we had a Rodgers versus Brady discussion. Last night, what we saw was Bill Belichick. I don't have Gronk. I don't have Sony Michel. Well, good thing I've worked in some package with Cordarrelle Patterson a week early. I'm going to use that more. Trick plays. We said be ready for a trick play. They pulled out a couple of them. The flea flicker, the double pass. How about the fact that on the opening drive, they must have seen something on film. See, I was watching it, wanting to talk to you about it. They saw something on film that said, on this opening drive, we can take advantage of something the Packers want to do or can't do by playing at the fastest pace I've ever seen New England play. They saw throughout the game the defensive ends must have been crashing in because all of a sudden, late in the game, Julian Edelman end arounds become a part of the rushing attack. Like, you saw the Pats scheme their way to a win where through 3 quarters, Brady wasn't super sharp. Through 3 quarters, this wasn't the Tom Brady proving he's the GOAT versus Aaron Rodgers. It was the Patriots finding a way to hang in the game until their opponent makes a critical error, as is so often the case. In this game, it was a fumble by the Green Bay Packers running back. And Bill Belichick understanding what his guys do, how to get the most out of them, and understanding what the other team can't do.
And Bill Belichick believes in himself. That's why you go out and you trade a 5th-rounder for a troubled Josh Gordon. What does Josh give you? He's been there like 5 weeks now.
Yeah.
He gives you 130 yards. So when you don't have Sony Michel, when you don't have Gronk, you have these other players. And because Belichick believes in his ability, regardless of what the player's past is, Cordarrelle Patterson, I can coach that guy. It's the old Bill Walsh philosophy. I might not have better players than you. Good players are important, but I'm a better coach. I coach the fundamentals of the game better. They take a wide receiver, kick returner, move him back to tailback. He's got great vision. He runs with the football well. This is the thing that he's done well, but no one else has been able to get that part out of him in pro football. Josh Gordon. Josh always talked about how he loved Cleveland. Cleveland bent over backwards. Man, they did everything to try to get Josh Gordon. He had a bad Saturday, showed up late. They end up trading him to New England. They'll take him. Because why? Because I believe in my coaching. The beginning of the game plan was excellent. You're right. They did get off to that very fast pace that caught the Packers off guard and late in the game. So the beginning of the game and late in the game, this is what New England's done. The reason why they've been to 8 Super Bowls is you have to get them out of New England because that's the style for which they're going to play. They play like a playoff game in November like it's January, and that's something that the Packers and the rest of the league, week after week after week, the little small details, they are not going to be up on them, and that's why the legacy of Bill Belichick is what it is. It's about the details.
See, what do you think they could have seen on film or leading up to the game that made them decide that first drive we're going to play at as fast of a pace as you will ever see an NFL team play?
To me, it's about personnel. And they saw during the Rams game, the Packers were utilizing a lot of different personnel to try to stop Todd Gurley. It was nickel, it was dime. When they had 2 linebackers in, it was pretty much a run-dominant defense. Belichick decided, I got the personnel on the field, which is an undersized lineup.
So now
I'm going to make them keep that same lineup on the field. I'm going to dictate to them, forget about the pace, who they're going to have on the field, and that's what they did. Caught them off guard there, and that was just enough to be able to get the game going because they had a hard time scoring after that.
So they've won 6 straight.
Yeah.
What after 9 games, how would you characterize this Patriots team this season?
This is what's so amazing about the 6-game winning streak. In the 6-game winning streak, most points in the league, most rush touchdowns in the league, 14th ranked passer in the league, Tom Brady. They haven't done it because Brady's been unbelievable. They've done it because they have invented a running game with Sony Michel and then into Cordarrelle Patterson. They've done it because of teams' fear. This is something you've taught me. Their fear of Tom Brady puts them in pass-heavy, pass-dominant defenses to where they can take advantage of the running game, which is what you saw yesterday. And they did it because take the Bears game. Okay, we're not playing great. How about we score a couple special teams touchdowns? Last night's game, Rodgers with the ball with the chance to score. His running back, Aaron Jones, makes a mistake. I saw Cordarrelle Patterson holding onto that football like it was his firstborn child. Like the one thing the Patriot he was not going to do yesterday was fumble that ball. You saw the Packers at times, instead of trying to tackle him, trying to attack the football, maybe thinking he's not a traditional running back. He doesn't have experience with these types of defense, like running at the defense like you've talked about. No, he's not going to make a mistake. The Patriots, of course, had no key penalties. The Packers had one enormous penalty on this questionable roughing the punter penalty. Like, it's just they find ways to make sure that they are in position to win, and if you give them extra opportunities, that's how a tie game can turn into a 14-point win.
Yeah, but also last week was the trade deadline, and not like other trade deadlines before. I mean, it was as active as we've seen in the NFL, a lot like the NBA's been the last couple years, but you got a franchise, Packers, they traded away one of their better players, Ha-Ha Dixon, and did they actually get better? Because New England, regardless, offseason free agency, before the draft, also after when they lost their offensive tackle, Nate Solder, man, they've been able to go out and acquire players under the radar and just coach them up, and those guys are making significant contributions. Those are the big differences I see between these franchises.
The Patriots traded away a 5th-round pick and added a guy yesterday who had the game-sealing touchdown. The Packers traded for a 4th-round pick and lost Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix, who even if Green Bay folks were killing me all weekend, he's overrated, he's not as good. I bet you after your safety got thrown out of the game on that, I thought, unfair penalty, but whatever. I bet you wish you had him then. I bet you wish you had him when you saw defensive back after defensive back go down with an injury. And the other thing that happened yesterday was an interesting little microcosm of the Brady-Rodgers debate. Rodgers through 3 quarters was winning the argument last night. Through 3 quarters, Rodgers has him beat across the board. Through 3 quarters, Brady was not sharp. Now show us the 4th quarter real quick. Brady with a perfect passer rating. Rodgers struggled. Now, I don't think that is indicative of who Rodgers is late typically, but that is indicative of who Tom Brady is late. Making the plays at the end of the game, that's where Brady was excellent. That's where he's been excellent for about 18 years now.
All right, we're going to get to another great quarterback coming up. How was Drew Brees able to hand the Rams their first loss of the year? That's next on First Things First. Moving on to Jared Goff heading down to New Orleans to face Drew Brees and the Saints. End of the first half, Alvin Kamara runs in the touchdown. He had 3 in the first half. Saints up 35-17 at the break, but the Rams would climb all the way back off, finding Cooper Kupp. This 41-yard pass play. And then 2-point conversion would tie it at 35. So later in the fourth, Saints now up 38-35. Drew Brees finds Michael Thomas for the 72-yard touchdown. Thomas, 211 yards on the day, and he pulls out the cell phone to celebrate the touchdown. Saints win 45-35,
what up, Joe Horn?
improving to 7-1.
I thought he was calling the bank.
Here's Drew Brees
I need a new contract
after
next
the
year.
game.
It's a very meaningful game. You know, trying to keep things in perspective that, you know, each win counts the same, right, on the stat sheet. But when you talk about playoff implications and all those things, I mean, that's who we aspire to be. So knowing that, hey, that was the undefeated team, that was the team that was leading the NFC, yeah, that's a big win, obviously. But they're going to keep winning games, I'm sure. I want us to keep winning games, and, you know, we'll see how it shakes out in the end.
CC, how impressive was the Saints' 45-35 win over the Rams?
Well, just the whole game. And in watching NFL action, I'm a huge fan of football, and especially at the professional level. But, man, this was an excellent football game. This was pro football and all the rules that we have in a perfect setting inside the Mercedes Superdome. And these quarterbacks and the way these offenses are run, it's very, very entertaining. But what the Saints have done, and forget about Sean Payton just for a second. Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, the way they got started with those first 2.5 games, I mean, they got bombed by Fitzy Magic in week number 1. First pass play of the season, I think D-Jack goes for 75. That's how we're going to start our season. Mirrored how they started in 2017 defensively. Now, a lot of people tend to forget about the Minneapolis Miracle because if the Saints, they don't have that play with Stephon Diggs happen, they go to Philadelphia. And I believe, after what I saw, the Saints would have been more equipped to go against that defense in Philadelphia than Case Keenum and the Vikings were. So, man, where they've come since week number 1, defensively, they won 7 games in a row, and it's because they keep turning the ball over. Collectively, they participated. No, not the Packers. Oh, no, we don't need to participate. They went and got Eli Apple. Why? Dennis Allen, Sean Payton. They got a bunch of Ohio State guys on that team they can believe that can help them. And then now on the offensive side of the ball, we see a star emerging in Michael Thomas. He's dominated this year. Him and Adam Thielen have the best years. And Tyreek Hill, they're in Kansas City. Those 3 wide receivers have been the best in pro football. And you saw last night, if you continue to give him a lot of man-to-man, like, he will break you down, and that's what ended up happening late in the fourth quarter where he scores the big touchdown to seal the game.
To your point on Michael Thomas, he caught 80% of the balls thrown to him yesterday. That lowered his percentage for the year.
Yes.
He was going into the game catching 90% of the balls thrown to him. Right there, they took advantage of what I believe to be a less than 100% Marcus Peters, which is a story to watch on the Rams side of things for a while now. To leave out, Peters has not been himself since he suffered his injury, and that sealed the football game. What the Saints have is, we know how great their quarterback is, we know how great their coach is, but they now have what I believe to be the best running back and the best wide receiver Drew Brees has ever played with. I do, with respect to Joe Horn and Marcus Colston, I don't think he's ever had a receiver playing at the level Michael Thomas is.
No.
And I know he hasn't had a running back, with respect to even Mark Ingram's Pro Bowl seasons, playing at the level Alvin Kamara is. And it was such a pleasure for me.
I think the combination of both of them, the totality of it, makes it really, really special.
And in today's NFL, the skill set Kamara has as a receiver is as valuable as it's ever been in this league.
Yes.
And it was such a pleasure to me to hear Troy Aikman point out that he pointed out, it was so funny on the broadcast, the stem of his route, which the only reason it was a pleasure for me to hear is a year ago, this week, I think, maybe a year and 2 weeks ago, you stood right here and talked with him about the stem of his route and about how you could see that he was already becoming a wide receiver as a running back, but there were certain things he needed to clean up a little bit.
Early last season, what I could see was he was offset. The quarterback was right behind the center in shotgun. He was offset. When he would come out, he would veer out towards the sideline, which would give the DB or the linebacker more information that he was going to break out. Now, what Sean Payton has done this year, he has him breaking inside now. So now with that read of going inside, it holds the DB inside, but he stays very fundamental and gets his stem straight where he has a three-way go. He breaks out on the guy. That's their number one play on third down.
It seems to be unguardable. If you really can, if he can choose to go three different places and Drew Brees can place the ball the way he can, I don't know what you could possibly do against it. Whether he's against a linebacker or a corner, I don't really know how much it matters. And then you have, on this game specifically, the sequence that turned the whole football game. The fake field goal that I thought they actually picked up, but it was so close you couldn't overturn it. Saints touchdown. Missed field goal, Saints touchdown. Interception, Saints touchdown. Now it's 35-14. And, like, with the way the Saints are running, the Rams made it close, but it was going to take some massive New Orleans mistakes for the Rams to be able to come back down 21 in that building.
Did this prove they're the team to beat in the NFC?
Well, I just think the Rams, who they've played, they haven't had a tough schedule as Kansas City. So Kansas City, even though with one loss, we've been saying, you know something, they have a tougher test. This was a very good test. The Rams played within 7 days. They played the Green Bay Packers, got on the plane, went to New Orleans, played them. So I just would say that wherever team is playing at home, they have the advantage. Because if New Orleans can play at home, man, Drew Brees has a huge advantage, but I believe that the Rams, I believe these teams are very, very, depends on coming down the stretch. The Rams have a couple players going to be coming back. Talib will be coming back.
Right.
How much better will the Saints be? I would say right now, I would still go with the Rams as far as the best team. That was a good game yesterday, home field advantage, because these are the 2 1 and 2 seeds, all right, coming down to the wire.
And listen, Carolina's going to try to get involved in that, but right now these look like the 2 best teams in the NFC. Here's the thing that I would say. I do think home field advantage is key here. I think home field means so much more for New Orleans than for the Rams. I think if the Saints can secure the 1 seed, which they are far from securing it, but had they lost yesterday, they'd have been almost eliminated from contention for securing it. They're going to be nearly impossible to beat in that building. That's why this game was so important. We see the energy in that building. There's only a few stadiums, I feel, that give you a legitimate, tangible, move the score home field advantage. The other ones, I think, are marginal. The Saints have one of them. You mentioned Kansas City, Seattle, Denver, Gillette. There's a handful of stadiums. The Saints have one of them. That's why this game was so critical. Brees was great. And that run defense, it wasn't fake. The number
on
one
paper, yes.
The Saints had the number 1 run defense in football going into the game. And we said Friday, do we really believe it? It's not like Gurley was held to nothing, but if you can get him to only hand the ball to Gurley 13 times, you're winning that matchup. Saints have to be thrilled about that.
Speaking of Brees, it's time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Drew Brees had a solid performance, throwing for nearly 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. CC, put a grade on Drew Brees' day.
Just like all the other pop quizzes, exams, midterms, everything, term paper, he got an A. Oh, he's been acing the course. This is one of the best seasons I've ever seen Drew Brees. Completion percentage, I believe he's going to break that. The way he's distributing the ball and having these young players grow, Drew Brees deserves an A.
All right, you were like the teachers I had in high school that frustrated me so much. So you mean I can't get an A+? I'm not eligible for an A+? No,
yeah,
son,
weirdo. You can stay after school. You can stay after school and wipe down the chalkboard and all that kind of stuff.
That's for the students like you that need a little extra credit. Students like myself.
Hey, teacher, you want to come to the game Friday night?
Okay.
Hey, how are we doing?
Okay, fair enough. I give him an A+ because he played a nearly flawless football game. A+, man.
We all have our strengths.
Some of us, 97 to 100 is supposed to be an A+. 93 to 96 an A. 99 to A-. That's the scale. Come on,
America. I work with a smart guy. Yeah. Who lets me know that every day?
Coming up, is Pat Mahomes running away with the MVP? That's next on First Things First. Finally, the Chiefs beat the Browns 37-21. Patrick Mahomes threw for 3 touchdowns and 375 yards in the win. Nick, what impressed you most about this win?
Listen, Pat Mahomes had a pretty typical Patrick Mahomes game. 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. The one interception was a Hail Mary at the end of the half. It didn't affect anything. But one play specifically stood out to me, which is about the embarrassment of riches Pat Mahomes has. Because every quarterback in the league could have made the play I want to show you right here. It ended up being a 50-yard touchdown pass, but a little misdirection that you don't see, and then Kareem Hunt makes 2 guys miss and reminds you he was the rushing champ last year. Like, the fact that the Chiefs, they have Tyreek Hill, they have Travis Kelce, they have Sammy Watkins, and their best player, their best offensive player might be this guy. What an absolute advantage they have on everyone before the game starts. You can't focus on one person. You can't focus on one scheme. And so Pat Mahomes has been great, and he might be the league MVP. But plays like that are not because Pat Mahomes is great. It's because the personnel around him is so outstanding, and that's what stood out to me yesterday.
And also, they're the most dangerous offense because of, when you look at their 4th best offensive player, who do you think that is?
Sammy Watkins.
Okay, let's go down any other NFL roster. And you tell me their 4th best offensive player, and you tell me if he's as good as Sammy Watkins.
Right.
And I'll tell you, no. You could see that last night in the Rams game. They didn't have. Kupp was a nice little option and everything. But, he's not Sammy Watkins. New England, we saw that. They do a little hodgepodge there. The coach got to scheme those guys to be able to get them open. Josh Gordon is probably their 3rd right now, and he's still not up to full strength. So their ability to be elite, tight end, elite, best tight end in pro football this year. And we know Tyreek Hill, one of the best 3 wide receivers they've had in football.
Well, that's the key.
Hunt, the running attack, and his passing skills coming out of the backfield, so explosive. If you throw the ball to any one of those guys outside of Kelce, the only thing that can stop them is the goal line. They can score almost anywhere on the field.
If you said the 4th best is Watkins, but if you just go to their top 3 weapons outside of the quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, all of them are in the discussion for best in the league this year.
Yes.
They might not be at the top of the list, but Kareem Hunt has been one of the 3 best running backs this year. Kelce's been one of the 3 best tight ends. Tyreek Hill's been one of the 3 best wide receivers. It is, and then you have a quarterback that is just playing at an insane level. This was his 8th straight 300-plus yard passing game.
It's amazing.
He's played 9 games this year. He's got 29 touchdowns. He's on pace for over 5,000 yards. Even in today's NFL, these are insane numbers Pat Mahomes is putting up.
So with all that being said, what, if anything, can hold this team back?
It's their defense. It's their defense and also penalties. They're one of the most penalized teams in pro football. And when you get into a game like last night's game, Pats versus Packers, that was a playoff-type atmosphere. And either turnovers or penalties, they really hurt teams in games like that. When we're trying to separate the best from the best, we played 8 games, so we have enough sample size that they're going to be a penalized team. Yep. Now, how can you be great and be one of the most penalized teams where ultimately you're going to have to face the New England Patriots? That right there, I want to be able to watch that because their defense is good enough. But those penalties at the wrong time, they hurt even good teams.
The penalties are something that is a huge problem, but something you think maybe they can clean up. The thing that concerns me the most is not the penalties, it's the rush defense. I actually think their pass defense, because they have a legitimate pass rush with D40 at a strip sack that was taken away yesterday, Justin Houston will come back at some point. I feel like the secondary is slowly but surely getting a little bit better. But that rush defense, the only reason the Browns didn't gash them more was because they were down so much early that they felt they had to throw the football. If they're in close games, if the Chiefs are in a position at some point this year, which they of course will be, where down 4 points, other team has the ball, got to get a stop. How are you getting that stop if their other team can just run it?
That's why they got to get home field advantage, and that's why it becomes important. What does L. Bell do with Pittsburgh? Because Pittsburgh's run the ball with Connor. They have Connor and Bell, and we know New England with Sony Michel, they're going to try to run the ball late. So those matchups become important. That's why they have to get home field advantage to play those games at home.
All right, we're going to move on to the Panthers, who kept their offense rolling, beating the Bucs 42-28. Cam Newton threw for just under 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Christian McCaffrey chipped in over 150 scrimmage yards and 2 scores of his own. The Panthers now 6-2, winning 5 of their last 6 games. CC, what did Cam Newton and the Panthers show you with their 42-28 win over the Bucs?
Well, I've been watching Cam and especially Ron Rivera, and I'll go with him in how he runs his team. because regardless, he's a guy that loses a lot of his assistant coaches based on promotions, and we saw that last year, lose the defensive coordinator. He's coaching the Arizona Cardinals. But his program continues to be successful. So for me, yes, Cam Newton, yeah, he's the big name, the marquee name in the franchise, but it starts with Ron Rivera, how they're going to play football. And last year, he decided, I believe Cam Newton can get better. He went out, fired Shula and Mike Shula as the offensive coordinator, and went and got Norv Turner. And Norv Turner, to me, is one of the most respected as far as teaching quarterbacks how to read defenses, what type of theme they're going to have, game in and game out, and really concentrating on their fundamentals. That's what Norv Turner does. That's what Troy Aikman rants and raves about him, other quarterbacks that have been with him, that not a great head coach, but a great quarterback coach and a great offensive coordinator. And he has helped calm down Cam's game. He has helped Cam be able to find some things that he really does well and be able to concentrate and keep repeating those over and over and over again. And I think that's the reason why we see Cam, Nick, with the highest completion percentage that we've seen in his career.
Like the high prior to this year was less than 62%. This year he's over 67%. You were banging the Norv Turner drum from the moment he was hired. And Norv Turner, I think, more skeptical of. I know I was more skeptical of him than you. I think because what I had in my mind's eye was the head coaching stuff, where he has not been successful. But maybe I need to start looking at Norv Turner like Wade Phillips, where a guy
no doubt
who is not necessarily the guy you want as your head coach. But if he can be your coordinator, for Wade, obviously, defensively, you're going to get better. And where Cam has been awesome this year is he's taking care of the football. He hasn't had those peaks and valleys like we've seen over the course of his career. He's taking care of the football. He's still running the ball himself, but he doesn't have to run it as much because they have more of a short and intermediate passing game that can take care of that. And Christian McCaffrey has been a spectacular weapon for them as of late. Yesterday, he had 78 receiving, 79 rushing. So all of that has turned the Panthers all of a sudden. We're talking about the Saints, and we should. Panthers got 2 losses. Saints have 1, and they haven't played each other yet. They played each other twice in the final 2 weeks or the final 3 weeks of the season. So the Panthers still have everything in front of them this year.
When we're breaking down the NBA, we always talk about high efficiency being shot selection and what guys do. Cece, for me, with Cam Newton, explain what exactly he's changed with his decision-making that's allowed him to make this jump.
Yeah, just like the NBA, I think that if you were trying to correct someone shooting, first thing you would do is find out where they're shooting from, what spots they want to shoot from, whether they're good spots, and what are the bad spots. And I think that Norv Turner, he looked at all the games that Cam's played in and looked at when is Cam efficient. And what he's taken away is probably the least efficient part of Cam's game. That's throwing the ball deep down the field. So in NBA, I'm not going to limit your three-point ability, but I'm going to limit the types of three-pointers you're going to. So now, Cam, you can see a shorter, more concise passing attack. You can see the percentages going up. But it's also gone into his confidence, just like a shooter. He gets more good results. You can see it carrying over into the rest of his game. He's a better leader when you don't have those peaks and valleys. And on the sideline this year, Cam, for some reason, has been less emotional, up and down, than any other part of his career that I've seen. So he's kind of stabilized that as the face of that franchise.
And the other thing that's happened for the Panthers is there is what appears to be a very clear line of demarcation, a turning point in their season. And that was that fourth quarter against Philly. They're down 17-0 in that fourth quarter against Philly, on their way to falling to 3-3. They come back from 17-0, scored 21 straight. The next week, they come out and blitz Baltimore early, I think up 24-7 at the end of the first half. They come out this week and blitz Tampa early, up 35-7 at the end of the first half. Like, that Philly game changed, to me, the trajectory of where they are. And we have talked about how within a game, Cam's confidence level, like if he's feeling good, if he's smiling, if he's signaling for first downs, he's going to play better. That confidence level, to me, has carried over from that comeback against Philly. That comeback against Philly showed them how good they can be. And since then, that offense has looked absolutely outstanding. Doesn't hurt they got Greg Olsen back. Doesn't hurt that they're getting more out of Curtis Samuel. You saw him on a big end around yesterday. DJ Moore had a big play the week before. Those young receivers coming into their own.
And the constant, even though you talked about they losing Wilkes as their defense coordinator, Arizona. Eric Washington, new defensive coordinator, he was pretty adamant several weeks ago when I talked with him about going out and getting players like Eric Reed. It really speaks to the leadership they have in that locker room. We're going to have a theme going down the stretch. Teams trying to get better and teams saying they're wanting to win. Green Bay, they say they want to win, but how are they actually trying to get better? Carolina, they did what was best for their team. They needed a safety. They went out and signed Eric Reed.
And I want to give them credit on the Eric Reed thing because they also, on their team website this weekend, did an interview with him. Because Eric Reed obviously wasn't in the league, seemingly because he was kneeling during the anthem. They did an interview with him where he talked about how his mother was active duty military. He has 10 military. They are leaning into it. They are not trying to hide who Eric Reed is. And how is he paying them forward? Well, he had a huge interception in yesterday's game early, almost returned for a touchdown. He's been one of the best mid-season additions any team has made this season. They didn't have to give up anything for him. He was off there on the street. 32 teams could have signed him. That new owner in Carolina greenlit it. He's been a big addition to their team.
We're going to talk about a team headed in the other direction coming up. Is John Harbaugh coaching for his job? That's next on First Things First. Welcome back. First Things First Super Bowl champ Cris joins the show.
What up, man?
Cris, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you, Sarah.
It's great to see you.
Absolutely.
What's going on?
Nothing much.
I know. Sorry, I'm giving him. I've got my side eye on Cece.
Because he's still mad.
We hadn't seen each other in a while, CC. So
Okay, no problem. I got all that.
It's about.
No, I got all that.
I made a joke.
Today's just been a little off and everything
There's a wall
on a
here
Monday. The
between us,
staff must have a
Canty.
long weekend, everything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Brian, our talent guy, he had your stuff and everything. I saw you was here early.
Yeah.
Didn't have coffee for Sarah, but he came in and swept the whole building like Secret Service. Watch out, Sarah's coming. Watch out, watch out, watch out. Gustav's coming through.
Brian's taking
He
this
looked in
L
the cup,
because
making
of
sure
me
they're
right
not
now.
trying to poison her. He had the dog come in, bombs, drugs. Okay, sat her
So
down.
what you're saying is Brian doing everything except for what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Wow,
Nick Wright's
Brian
supposed to be
taking
trying to
all
make
these
me look good. He's doing everything, but he's supposed to be doing. I'm glad you're here, bro.
Hey, just that
here we
Belichick.
go.
Do your
I'm
job.
glad
Do your job,
Thrilled
Brian.
you're
Do your
here.
job.
I'm so glad you're here.
this
Mr.
poor
Tickles,
guy.
how you doing?
Ben Roethlisberger looking to avenge the
Hi,
Steelers'
Candy,
loss
how
to the
you
Ravens
doing?
earlier this season. First quarter, Big Ben finds James Conner, runs in the end zone. Steelers
Hi, Candy,
up
Sarah, don't be waving,
7-3.
Greg.
And then the next possession, he finds Antonio Brown, 14-3. And then the third quarter, Ben ends an over 8-minute drive with the quarterback sneak touchdown. Steelers win it 23-16. It's their fourth win in a row. And here is Big Ben after the game. You were not listening to Big Ben because we want to hear from you. The Steelers win. How impressive was that to you?
Pretty impressive for me. I mean, anytime you hold the ball for 36 minutes against a team like the Baltimore Ravens, who are one of the best defenses in the National Football League, you have to be impressed by what they're able to do and being able to have the level of balance on the offensive side of the ball. James Conner, another 100-yard rushing performance. But I think the most important thing to keep in mind right here is Big Ben not turning the football over. When Big Ben doesn't have those turnovers, he puts that offense in a really good situation. They were able to sustain drives, 10 of 16 on third down, and three of what was that? 3 or 4 in the red zone?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the Baltimore Ravens offense, they were 1 of 4 in the red zone. Joe Flacco missed 2 opportunities, one where he just didn't even look at Lamar Jackson. He was wide open. I don't know if that's Flacco not seeing him or him just hating on Lamar Jackson. And then there was another red zone trip.
There it is. I mean, Lamar's wide open. He throws out the back of the end zone.
Wide open. I don't understand what he's doing. And then the throw to Michael Crabtree is one that he's just got to hit when he's got him in a one-on-one situation. Joe Flacco came up small in those moments, and Mike Tomlin talked about that being the difference in that game because rather than it being a 14-14 game at halftime, it was 14-6. The Steelers come out and they score a touchdown on their opening drive, and that's all she wrote. That was an insurmountable lead. That was enough for the Steelers to get it done on the road in the division.
Now, Canty, I haven't asked you this question, but how much is this is not about this stat sheet and everything, because you've been part of this rivalry.
Yep.
How much of it is just about style, we're better than them, there's a certain way we want to play when it gets to November that the Pittsburgh Steelers want to play that Ben was able to do. Grit, toughness, almost got knocked out of the game a couple times, came back in there. How much of your analysis of Ben are those type of things? Because you've been on the Baltimore side and you know what it takes to win and lose these games.
Yeah, well, you know you're going to get punched in the mouth. And, I mean, both teams, they're mirror images of each other. They want to do things the same way. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, out-executed the Baltimore Ravens in all 3 phases of the game. So, yeah, even though Zadarius Smith knocked out Big Ben and looked like a scary moment because he came down on his shoulder, it was just him getting the wind knocked out of him. Josh Dobbs comes in, throws a completion, and guess what? Roethlisberger's coming back off the sideline again. So, I mean, that's impressive to me to realize that your quarterback is going to take that kind of shot and respond that way.
And it was impressive to me that Tomlin had the faith in Dobbs. 2nd and 20, drop back from your own end zone. Let's go ahead and especially once you know, Big Ben could be coming back in. Most coaches in that spot would say, well, the last thing I want is for my backup quarterback being here for
and it's
one
not
play.
3rd down where he was forced.
Right.
Nick, you can't afford it in that kind of game. You can't coach that kind of game conservatively.
Right.
That is a rivalry game. There are no state secrets. They all know each other. So I thought it was important that Mike Tomlin be aggressive in his play calling throughout the game.
Agreed, but I just know a lot of coaches wouldn't. A lot of coaches there are doing either a screen pass, a draw play, hand off to Connor, see when Ben can come back, because they had the lead at that point. Like, that was showing that faith. And the reason I want to bring it up is I know we're going to talk about Harbaugh in a second, but we can't do this to Mike Tomlin. That when they're 1-2-1, Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat. Has he lost the locker room? What's wrong with the Steelers? And when they win 4 in a row, we don't talk about him. And I'm using the we generically. I'm not talking about, like, Mike Tomlin has proven year after year he's one of the best coaches in this league. This year, much like last year, they don't have a great start to the season. We can blame some of that on Le'Veon Bell, some of that on Big Ben, some of that on the head coach, obviously. But the last month, they've been excellent. And the last month, that defense, the defense, which we said, man, they never got over Ryan Shazier's injury. On the 4-game winning streak, defense, 17, 21, 18, 16 points allowed. The defense all of a sudden got better. The offense with James Conner has been very good. Antonio Brown's always going to be Antonio Brown. And the Steelers look like what they're supposed to look like, which is the best team in the AFC North.
What have you seen change in this 4-game win streak?
Well, I think defensively, their front 7 is stepping up. Well, I know that they've had issues on the back end of that defense, but to me, if Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt come to play, I mean, you're probably looking at 2 of the best 3-4 bookends in the National Football League, and those guys are the ones that set the tone. That's how you hold the Baltimore Ravens offense to only 61 yards rushing, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. They made them one-dimensional. They put it on Joe Flacco, and guess what? Joe Flacco wasn't able to produce for them, and for a guy that you're paying $20+ million per year on a contract, you would like to get more production from that position, especially in this game, because you're fighting for your playoff life if you're the Baltimore Ravens.
You talk about Mike Tomlin and speculation at times of him being on the hot seat. Well, after the game, John Harbaugh addressed rumors about his job security. Take a listen.
I haven't seen that. You know, I don't know. I've never been somebody that ever worried about keeping a job. You know, it's always been for me doing the job. And, you know, I've got a bunch of great coaches and a bunch of great players that bust their tails every single day to do the best job they can. And I feel really good about the way this team has been coached for the last 11 years and for the last number of weeks that we've been in this season. So, you know, no regrets. Never been any regrets here with me. So we'll keep fighting, and that's what we do.
Cris, what do you think? Should Harbaugh be on the hot seat?
Well, I'll say this. I think he is on the hot seat. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and this is an organization that has not been in the postseason since I was a part of that team, and that's been a little while now. That's been a minute. So, I mean, for a team that expects to be in the playoff conversation every single year, for you to have that extended absence from qualifying for the postseason, I think that's putting John Harbaugh in a tough position. And then when you consider what's happening at the top of the hierarchy in the organization, the handoff from Ozzie Newsome to Eric DeCosta, when the organization's turning it over to a new general manager, it might create a natural opportunity for them to transition away from John Harbaugh and give Eric DeCosta the head coach of his choosing.
I can't say if John Harbaugh is or isn't on the hot seat. I haven't done any reporting on that, obviously. What I can say is he shouldn't be. I can say that I believe the Ravens have achieved the most they could achieve since that playoff game in 2014 when you guys made the AFC Championship game with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. They have had by
AFC
every
divisional game.
AFC divisional game. They have had by every quarterback metric one of the least productive quarterback positions over the last 5 years. This year, post week 1, Flacco's 9 touchdowns, 6 picks, a sub-80 quarterback rating. In the 2018 NFL, that's like a 60 rating in years past. And the playoff drought, while it's accurate, what's also true is this. with 10 seconds left in last season, the Ravens were in the playoffs. It took that Andy Dalton miracle that put Buffalo in, knocked Baltimore out. So it's not like they had been bottoming out. I think John Harbaugh is a very good coach. I think he's getting the most out of the roster. I think he's very limited at quarterback. I wouldn't, if I'm Baltimore, no matter who the GM with DaCosta, I wouldn't want to move on from John Harbaugh, who to me is a known quantity at head coach.
Yeah, I think it would be a mistake if they moved on from Harbaugh. I believe Harbaugh is a good coach. I believe he's also a leader of men. Well, why is that important? In the NFL, it's very important. It's very important that you can manage the personalities that you're going to have. And there's no avoiding the personalities. New England, they got personalities too. But they put them personalities on the back burner because they know that Bill Belichick. If they fire him, the Cleveland Browns should be the first team to call. Now, imagine Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. He's got a quarterback. I believe with Dorsey, the general manager, they would be able to get this team to a playoff type of team with that defense that they have. Yep. See, I have faith in Harbaugh. Y'all can say what you want about the Harbaughs, but man, their dad raised some coaching. Them dudes can coach some football. Yep. They know football. They have a passion for football, and their ability to be able to teach it at a high level, I think we should respect that. Mike Tomlin, they disrespect him all the time. Harbaugh, they disrespect him all the time. Let me know when he has a team that's losing to people that are inferior to him.
Right.
All right? When I see that, you're losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger. All right? That's a respectable loss right there. So Baltimore, slow down. You got a lot going on with Ozzie Newsome. Keep the coach that you do have because there's no guarantee that you will get better.
Chris Canty, we're keeping you right here. Coming up, how was Drew Brees able to hand the Rams their first loss of the year? That's next on First Things First. Back here with Chris Canty, and we are going viral. #1 Alabama went into Death Valley and handed LSU the 29-0 loss Saturday. And no one could sum up the feeling of everyone in the stadium better than this fan who instantly became an internet sensation known simply as #LSUGirl. She's embracing it, though. She made it her new Twitter avatar.
Wow, so salty. So salty.
She knew the camera was right there.
She's sober, though. You could look at her eyes, man, she ain't been drinking.
Right, which is why she's so miserable. You had a football game in Louisiana with your team getting mollywopped and you're sober? That does not sound enjoyable. No.
That was a great shot.
That was a great shot.
That was about the only thing I'm going to remember from that game.
Did Virginia win this weekend?
Really? That's what we're going to take?
I'm just curious. We're talking college football. Syracuse won. Ohio State, you guys won, right? Didn't play great, but you guys won, right?
Canty, there's been a lot of shots fired.
We're all playing for second place to Clemson anyway. Does it really matter that much?
I mean, I don't know what you're talking
about. We at least still have a chance to be in the conference championship game.
To Jared
lay
Goff,
hands on you, what you want
headed
me to
down
do.
to New Orleans to face Drew Brees and the Saints. End of the first half, Alvin Kamara runs in the touchdown. He had 3 in the first half, but the Saints up 35-17 at the break. But the Rams would climb all the way back. Goff finding Cooper Kupp on the 41-yard pass play. 2-point conversion would tie it at 35. Then later in the fourth, Saints now up 38-35. Drew Brees finds Michael Thomas for the 72-yard touchdown. Thomas had 211 yards on the day, and yep, you've probably seen this already. Pulls out the cell phone to celebrate. Saints win 45-35, improving to 7-1. And here is Drew Brees after the game.
It's a very meaningful game. Trying to keep things in perspective that, each win counts the same, right, on the stat sheet. But when you talk about playoff implications and all those things, I mean, that's who we aspire to be. So knowing that, hey, that was the undefeated team, that was the team that was leading the NFC, yeah, that's a big win, obviously. But they're going to keep winning games, I'm sure. I want us to keep winning games, and, we'll see how it shakes out in the end.
Chris, how impressive was the Saints' 45-35 win over the Rams?
Well, first of all, when I saw Michael Thomas pull out that cell phone, I thought he was trying to get a hold of Akeem Talib just to let him know his boy Marcus Peters needed a little help out there. He needed some backup.
He was calling for help.
Yeah, because Marcus Peters was not about that life. He did not want to get up on Michael Thomas and try to press him. He can't win that one.
When he pressed the phone, he did press in 3 numbers, though.
Yeah.
He didn't press in your normal digits. It was like 911. Help.
Radio for backup. But no, listen. because, listen, this is an impressive win, but what happened yesterday is about what I thought would happen. The home team was going to win that game. If they played that one in the Coliseum, the Rams would probably come out on top. But they played it down in the Superdome, and that's a different Saints offense when they're down there in the Dome. I don't know if it's the hoodoo, I don't know if it's the who dat, but it's a different type of offense. And when you can have Alvin Kamara split out and run routes like a receiver, when you can have Michael Thomas do what he did yesterday, Traquan Smith coming to the party, Ben Watson showing up, there are a lot of guys that Drew Brees can spread the football around to, and they took advantage of that Rams defense and some of the things that they had been seeing in their film study. One of the most impressive parts about that game offensively for me for the Saints was no sacks on Drew Brees. This is the second consecutive week where that Saints offensive line has not allowed Drew Brees to get sacked. We all know about Aaron Donald, that defensive front of the Rams. They traded for Dante Fowler Jr., but guess what? They didn't allow their quarterback to get sacked. Last week, playing against the Minnesota Vikings, they didn't allow their quarterback to get sacked. That was a Vikings defense that had 10 sacks yesterday against the Detroit Lions. So if you can protect Drew Brees and they're able to hold serve down the stretch and maintain home field advantage, all of a sudden it's a different conversation around the Rams if they got to go down to the Superdome for the NFC Championship game.
And I would say this is not the typical Saints team that we've seen in the past where they were prolific as far as throwing the ball, that you were like, man, this is a dome team. They don't have the physicality. If they did have to travel north or bad weather, we don't think they can do it. They're not that way anymore because of that offensive line and because of the dual threats that they have in the backfield. What I liked about the game last night was, because I know going into this game, Sean Payton wanted to take advantage of that lack of a great run defense that the Rams had. And he was going to bang Mark Ingram at him. He was going to give Mark Ingram 20 carries. Sometimes you have a game plan, but when you get in the game, because of the defense and other things, you have to change and or adapt. Most teams don't do it. Saints fumble the ball. Ingram fumbles the ball. He gets a bone bruise on his forearm. So you knew after that he wasn't going to be a huge role in what they were trying to do. All right, Kamara, let's give him the ball. He has 19 carries. He's got 5 receptions out of the backfield. So I'm going to take that same game plan with an undersized third down back, and I'm still going to pound it up in there. So I think that where they are right now, offensively with Sean Payton, they can do so many different things. But, man, if you have an offensive line that is not going to allow pressure on Drew Brees, what defense in the NFL is going to be able to stop that?
I mean, that was, by the way, both offensive lines, I want to give them credit for keeping their quarterbacks clean. There were not only no sacks, but very few pressures throughout this game. It felt like both quarterbacks were having time, which is why the critical sequence is the one you alluded to. Ingram fumbles. It's 14-14. It looks like you're going to have to score every time. It's 14-14. Ingram fumbles, sets the Rams up with great field position. The Saints defense gets their first of a couple key 3-and-outs. Force them into a field goal. They run a fake field goal. Now, they were very close to getting it, but they ended up not getting it, at least being ruled they didn't get it. Touchdown Saints. Next possession, missed field goal. Touchdown Saints. Next possession right before the half, interception, the great play by the middle linebacker. That was a hell of a catch by him, reaching back across his body. Touchdown Saints. Now it's 35-14. And no matter where that game's played, you're down 21 to the Saints. Unless they make massive errors in the second half, it's going to be very difficult to come back. The Rams got it close, but when you're down that much, you have to play a perfect football game the rest of the way. Can't have the one mistake. Can't have Marcus Peters, who's playing at less than 100% with no safety help on Michael Thomas. You're going to lose the football game, and that's what they did. I agree with you on the home field thing. The Saints feel like a different team in that building.
Well, here's the thing. They didn't have to punt in the first half, right? So when you start talking about them going up 35-14, if you're Sean McVay, you realize Todd Gurley can't run me back into this football game. I got to put this on Jared Goff. And I think we found out that Jared Goff, although he's a good quarterback, he's not quite on that level where he can go blow for blow and match scores with Drew Brees. And that's exactly what they did. They allowed the scoreboard to dictate the offensive game plan for the Rams. So everybody wants to make a big deal out of this Saints run defense. I don't know if their run defense is as good as the statistics are, but guess what? When I have to force the opposing team to throw the ball because the scoreboard is 35-14, that takes care of the Todd Gurley problem for me altogether. And I think that's exactly what Drew Brees set out to do early in that game. So the missteps that you had, the fake field goal that they didn't convert on, and the turnover late by Jared Goff throwing it to Alex Anzalone, that was the difference in terms of dictating the complexion of the game. And Drew Brees was able to do enough at the end of the game to close it out.
Home field obviously significant. However, who's the best team in the NFC in your mind?
Well, I got to say it's the New Orleans Saints. I mean, these are 1A and 1B right now, and I think that these two teams will continue to develop as the course of the season goes on. The mark of a good football team is a team that continues to get better as the season progresses. But if you want to ask me what team has more of the upside, I would say it's the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, you added Dante Fowler Jr., a lot of young players.
Right.
Hopefully you get Aqib Talib back at some point. I think that will make a difference. And the Rams have an easier schedule through their last 7 games than the Saints do in the last 8 games.
The Rams definitely have an easier path. The Rams likely will, despite this loss, still end up with the 1 seed because the Saints got to play Carolina twice. They also play Pittsburgh. Like, Saints have a
There's
really
only
tough...
one team that the Saints play that's not going to be in playoff contention. That's the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Exactly
That's
right.
it.
And meanwhile, the Rams have another game against San Francisco, another game against Arizona. But I think the Saints are better than them. I think the Saints can go to Los Angeles and win. The Rams, to me, have looked gettable the last month. Seattle almost had them. Denver almost had them. We know Green Bay almost had them, and they got beat yesterday. The Rams are not a team that, in my eyes, has been impressive outside of Los Angeles this year. They have two substantial road wins. Those are against the Niners and the Raiders, 2 of the worst teams in football. So the Rams might be on their way to 14-2 or even 13-3, but they are, to me, a team that against the best opponents is gettable because the defense without Aqib Talib is not shut down, and they still don't have pass rush.
They need Talib coming back. I think they'll generate enough pass rush through having Fowler there. Fowler had a tough week. Gets traded, flying to Los Angeles, then got to fly another 5 hours back on Friday to New Orleans. So I thought what he provided them was very, very good. Their nickel situation as far as pass defense is bad, and their linebackers are awful in pass coverage. So I don't know how much that's going to change. I think right now the Rams are a better team than the Saints, even in this game, even after seeing the game yesterday.
Chris can't see. We're going to see you a little later. We're going to make sure you have Brian in check for us, please.
Wow.
Go.
Okay.
Coming
So I
up,
need to go regular.
how tough will it be for Aaron Rodgers to drag the Packers to the playoffs? That's next on First Things First. Sunday is a great slate of NFL action highlighted by Drew Brees and the Saints taking on Andy Dalton and the Bengals, or the Chargers battle the Raiders. It's all on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Check local listings for the game in your area. All right, we'll get to the Pats and the Packers in just a second, but first, Rams, Saints, Malcolm Brown with unreal body control stays in bounds for the touchdown.
Malcolm Brown is starting running back on about 15 teams in the NFL. Unfortunately for him, he's on the team with Todd Gurley. I couldn't believe he stayed in bounds, man.
I didn't think it was possible. It was like his hips were double jointed or something.
That was a great play.
Seattle taking on the Chargers. Jaron Brown rises to make the great catch while also staying in bounds.
This was a tough catch. It was coming between a couple different pair of arms, and he was in the back of that end zone where he tried to try to get both feet down.
Ooh.
Nice catch right there.
Chargers, a dangerous team, though. If they ever figure out their kicker situation, 6-2, their only losses to the Chiefs and Rams. Kicker yesterday.
That's not a new issue, is
No,
it?
it's for the last 4 years they've had the worst kicking situation in football. Yesterday they missed 2 extra points and a field goal, almost allowed Seattle to come back at the end.
Finally, Henry Ruggs makes an amazing one-handed grab in Alabama's beatdown of LSU.
Oh, look, I mean, he takes some punishment there. I think the one-handed grab he had was later in the game. That was Alabama
I'm
just
glad they picked up that flag for targeting, too. I hate that targeting rule.
Man, that ejection
College, y'all need to do something about that.
It was a fun one last night. 2 great quarterbacks squaring off. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Foxborough. Game tied at 17 in the 4th, and this fumble by Aaron Jones proved costly. Later in the 4th, Julian Edelman finds James White on the double pass. Pretty. White would score 3 plays later, so New England up 24-17. Next Pats possession. Brady finds Josh Gordon for the 55-yard touchdown. Whew. Beautiful play there. Brady finished with just under 300 yards and a touchdown as the Pats win their 6th in a row. Meanwhile, the Packers fall to 3-4-1. And here's Aaron Rodgers after the game.
I say it all the time. Every year you have to learn how to win again. And we have to learn how to win on the road. We've lost 4 road games. We haven't lost at home. We've tied, but we haven't lost at home. But we've played 2 great teams who could be considered, although the Rams lost today, 2 of the top teams in the NFL in their respective conferences, and we had a chance to win both games. It's very frustrating because there's plays in every game that would put us in a better situation if we can get that, that play off, and maybe we get 7 instead of 3 early in the game, and it sets a different tone. If we can, if we don't fumble the ball there, if I hit Devontae, down 24-17 on second down there, who knows? We made some good plays. Marquez had 3 nice catches for us. Jimmy made some plays, but yeah, I mean, we all got to play better, myself included.
Nick, do you believe that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers can still bounce back after dropping a 3-4-1?
I think they're alive, but it's on life support, and they've called in the pastor or the chaplain, whomever you'd like. They phoned the relatives. They got to go 7-1 now. That's what it is. You got 8 games left. You got 1 loss to play with. Because at 3-4-1, I think 10-5-1 probably gets you in. But 9-6-1 doesn't. So you got to go 7-1 the rest of the way. And Rodgers keyed on it. What has happened to the Packers on the road? And by the way, even if they go 7-1, they've now put themselves in position where every playoff game they play would be on the road. So they have to get it right. In their last 6 road games, they're 0-6. They're turning the opposing quarterback into Aaron Rodgers on the road. 15 touchdowns, 1 interception with a 116 rating by opposing quarterbacks against the Packers on the road. Like, they're allowing at least 29 points in every one of those games. So it's their road struggles. It is just impossibly bad timing on turnovers. See, back-to-back weeks, like they have a chance for Aaron Rodgers to lead a game-winning drive, fumble the kickoff. They have a chance for Aaron Rodgers to take the lead in the 4th quarter, fumble when you're driving. Like, these impossibly bad timing on turnovers and just an inability to sustain any defense on the road is why right now there's a mediocre football team.
And every team makes mistakes. No one plays perfect games. But Aaron Rodgers has been put in a situation by this organization that they have to play as close to perfect as possible. They can't recover. And you could see early in this game what Belichick was going to do. He was going to take away his number 1 target in Davante Adams and force him, which he kept him 40 yards receiving, and force you to get the ball to other people. They were not able to do that consistently enough. That's what New England does. They had a great game plan offensively, came out with I've never seen them go that fast as far as an offense, for how quick they ran plays, to be able to keep Green Bay in one defense that they wanted to. That whole series end up getting the early lead when Green Bay wins the toss and defers and give the Patriots the ball. So the Packers are in a tough situation because when you can't win on the road, it's based on a couple things. You can't play good defense, and you cannot run the ball. So I don't know what the rush totals were in those games, but you look in that losing streak, you can't be physical. You can't eat up time. Aaron Rodgers can't have a mediocre game because you have not put the type of team or the talent around him that would support him.
And maybe I shouldn't be this frustrated with the Packers. I get frustrated because I really like watching Aaron Rodgers play football. I want to watch him play meaningful games. But the Packers organization seems okay with this being a step back year, because I don't know how many tackles or interceptions that 2019 4th-round pick made yesterday, but I didn't see him out there.
Yeah,
I know that
I think Ha could have made that tackle on Josh Gordon to prevent that big touchdown in cover 2.
Or even if the folks in Green Bay who were telling me no, Pro Football Focus has him overrated, he's been bad this year. Well, your safety got thrown out of the game early. Now, I thought it was unfair he got thrown out, but that happens. Guys get hurt. People get ejected. Things happen, and people get suspended. And to get rid of one of your, at worst, top 5 defensive players for a future 4th-round pick when you've got this game coming up, when you were this close to beating the Rams last week, maybe you get what you deserve. Like, maybe this is organizationally where the Packers are fine with being. I'm not okay with it. They're under 500 after 8 games for the first time in Aaron Rodgers' entire career, and they don't need to be.
But in typical fashion, he gets thrown out. New England plays right up to the edge of the whistle blows. He throws a shot at him, and then the other player retaliates, and then New England player, what does he do? Points right to the referee. Hey, look at this guy. Throw him out the game. It happens all the time with New England. The gamesmanship is at a high level.
And real quick, just to stay on that for a moment, that obviously should have been a flag. I thought that was an absurd ejection.
There's no doubt.
Right?
There's no one been thrown out of an NFL game for less than an open hand. Man, the NFL, that's one thing we like. We thought you can go on the field and slap somebody and get away with it. Like, especially an open hand. Like, I can get away with that.
And it's not like this was after the game had gotten real chippy. There had been a fight. They had warned everybody. And the announcers were shocked by it. I was shocked by it. The ref didn't even have his mic on when he announced it. And so I'm not saying the Packers would have won if that didn't happen, but you had to be frustrated if you're a Packer fan knowing this guy's replacing the guy we traded away. Now
Yes.
he's gone too.
All right, well, coming up, the Steelers, are they better off without El Bell? That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, and we are going viral. The Jets fell to the Dolphins 13-6. Head coach Todd Bowles pointed the finger at New York's defense for a lack of turnovers. And let's just say this rubbed former Jets linebacker and friend of the show, Bart Scott, the wrong way.
Man, this is bull crap, right? No, we got to get turnovers? Really? 3 for 16, that's a turnover. When you get them 3 and out, that's a turnover. That's getting the ball back to the offense. What are you talking about? 4 sacks. Holding Osweiler 15 for 24 for 139. The hell are you talking about? Well, that's the type of statement that pisses me off in the locker room as a defensive player, and we got to have a conversation. Because you start pointing fingers saying we ain't doing good enough. You didn't do good enough. You didn't represent us good enough. You didn't prepare us good enough. You didn't make adjustments. We had questions, and you didn't give us any answers. How about that one?
What did you make of the response?
Get the hell out of here.
You knew Bart was going to be
his drawing board. Let's take his drawing board.
I hear you.
We're going to take his ink pen in a minute. He ain't going to be there.
That was a great job by Bart.
Write that down.
Like Bart Scott would say. I don't know who the fellow was who was in the middle trying to segue off, man. You got to let Bart just go till he runs out of breath. He was trying to get another question, and Bart was not done talking. He was upset.
Bart has a very, very high football IQ. Man, and I'm so glad that he has platforms where he can get it out there, because after you get done listening to him, you will be a lot smarter in everything. It's been a pleasure for us to have him on the show. Bart, keep crushing it.
Well, I think he's going to be here tomorrow, so we hope he could bring that same fire.
Let's do it.
Time for some stories to start your morning.
In your hair. You look a little dry.
Sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Alabama continue their near-decade-long dominance of LSU. They won 29-0, improving to 9-0 in the season. CeCe, were you surprised by Alabama's dominance?
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't beat them worse.
Really?
This is going to be the closest margin Alabama will have the rest of the season.
Wow.
All right, Bear Bryant, if he could get up out of his grave, he'll tell y'all in the Bear Bryant twang that he has in his voice, this is the best Alabama football team in the history of football, people.
That's your Bear Bryant?
That's something.
I mean, the man's passed, so we can't prove you're wrong. It's like when Daniel Day-Lewis played Lincoln. You just got to assume it's right. Listen, you've been saying this is the best Alabama team of your lifetime, which is a hell of a statement since they won about a half dozen championships in your lifetime.
When Nick Saban benches a quarterback that took him to 2 national championships and he's still on the team, it lets you know how good they are.
Man, I thought this was their best chance to lose all year, and they shut them out. Everyone's playing for second place unless something happens to Tua.
Y'all want to have an all-star game play against them in the national championship. That's your best bet.
The Texans outlasted the Broncos 19-17. It was Houston's 6th win in a row. Denver missed a 51-yard field goal as time expired. Nick, what was your biggest takeaway from this game?
Credit to Houston. 0-3 to 6-3 is damn near unprecedented. So I give them a ton of credit for having not only saving their season, but now being in great position. But come on, Denver. You're down 2. You have a timeout. There's 20-plus seconds left.
Is this an indictment on Denver or NFL coaches now?
Vance Joseph's just the latest coach to decide I'm just playing to get in field goal range instead of the best field goal range possible. He got to the 34, let 15 seconds run off the clock, centered the ball, and kicked it. You could have gotten 10 more yards. I don't understand.
I can understand that running the ball. I wouldn't have passed the ball with Clowney and J.J. Watt and them in the turnover. But you can run the ball there, especially when you have a timeout. Nick, we need to get more of the geeks like you guys somehow to be involved in football at the end of games and everything.
Like a guy standing next to the coach, the clock management, game management, situational coordinator.
We got to get you to toughen up and everything, because when people raise their voice at you, you don't respond necessarily the best way.
Finally, the Chiefs.
Who am I married to? What you talking about?
37-21. Patrick Mahomes threw for 3 touchdowns and 375 yards in the win. Nick, what impressed you most about the Chiefs yesterday?
All right. Let's just start real quick with the quarterback because it's now a given. He's going to complete about 65% of his passes. He threw for 300-plus yards, 375 this game. That ties an NFL record. 8 consecutive 300-yard passing games, 3 touchdowns. The 1 pick was meaningless. It was the end of the half Hail Mary. He played great. But what impressed me the most was they just remind you they can beat you any way they want to beat you. I thought the play, like, look at this 50-yard pass to Kareem Hunt. This is a little dump off. Kareem Hunt, little screenplay. I'm going to make you miss. I'm going to run off you, and that's to the house. Oh, okay, so why weren't they scheming to stop Kareem Hunt? Well, then Tyreek Hill's going to hit you in the head. Okay, well, what about Travis Kelce? And then as you pointed out, see, who's their 4th option?
Sammy Watkins.
Oh, okay. The guy who the Cowboys were dying to pay a ton of money to be their number 1 option by far.
Yeah, $16 million a year.
Right. This Chiefs team, this is the best offense in football. With respect to the Saints, to the Rams, what the Patriots are doing. The only thing stopping the Chiefs from
scheme and talent.
Yes.
Them and the Rams have some of the best scheme. We know in New Orleans what they're doing with Drew Brees is very special. But scheme and talent, it happens to reside in Kansas City as far as being the strongest.
Because what the Saints and the Rams both have, that the Chiefs have, is a stud running back and a stud number 1 receiver. I don't even know who the Rams tight end is. I think it's Higbee. I'm not sure. They never throw to him. The Chiefs have Travis Kelce. The Saints, who's their 2nd best wide receiver? Is it Traquan Smith? The Chiefs, it's Sammy Watkins. Like, it is this schematically, and they have a head coach that can look eye to eye with Sean Payton, Sean McVay as far as schematics. The only reason the Chiefs aren't scoring more a game is because they're getting up so big that they're taking the foot off the gas to play the clock late. Like, this offense is, right now, as good as any offense I've seen. It is eye to eye with the best offense.
And this Browns defense is a talented defense. So when you look at it, you think, well, that's Cleveland. Well, they got a lot of talent on that defense. So when you look at what they did and how they did it, you also have to look who they were going against in the Browns.
With all the talent of the Kansas City offense, then where is this Chiefs team susceptible?
I would say I'm concerned about 2 things. I'm concerned about their overall run defense. If someone happens to eat up the clock and keep that offense off the field. And I'm concerned about their penalties. When you start talking about championship football, you can't have 90 to 120 yards in penalties a game. That's a whole football field. Those type of penalties, they change the game. They put you in 3rd and long. They pass interference at the wrong time. They are automatic scoring situations. So those are the things they have to be able to shore up the run defense, which I do believe will get better. And it's hard to play better run defense when you're ahead because sometimes how good are you, how many attempts? But in these close games, teams will run the ball. And those penalties in big games, especially if you happen to face the Patriots, because we know they're one of the least penalized teams.
Year.
All right, so big difference between those 2 organizations.
The run defense is what my biggest concern is because I can just see it already in my mind's eye. They're playing a home playoff game after a great season. Some things go wrong. They're down 4 with 5.5 minutes left, and the other team has the ball. And you never get it back. They just run it right down your throat to run out the clock. Like, there's going to be a situation where they have to be able to get a stop to get the ball back, and the run defense is, to me, the biggest concern.
One thing I want to watch, too, because Kansas City Chiefs fans are smart. But, man, they've been going through a bad history. And anytime you go with teams that have gone through a bad history, they get anxiety. So I'm worried if the Chiefs get home field advantage, if they get down in the playoffs or not playing prolific offense, do they think like Nick Wright?
Yeah.
Because they've been seeing this for years. Oh, man, here we go again. Oh, man, here we go. See, they're not saying that in New Orleans. They're not saying that in L.A. But do the Chiefs have that already baked in? That's a concern for me for this young, explosive offensive team.
All right, let's get to another game from yesterday. Ben Roethlisberger looking to avenge the Steelers' loss to the Ravens earlier this season. First quarter, Big Ben finds James Conner, who runs it into the end zone. Steelers go up 7-3. Next possession, Roethlisberger finds Antonio Brown to put Pittsburgh up 14-3. Then in the third quarter, Ben ends an over 8-minute drive with the quarterback's sneak touchdown. Steelers win this one 23-16, their 4th win in a row. CC, what has been the key to the Steelers turning their season around with these 4 straight wins?
Well, the one thing that we see with good teams is, and we saw that with the Saints, we've seen it with the Rams in certain parts of the game. We see it especially with New England because no one is better as far as what are your weaknesses when you start the season and trying to make sure those weaknesses aren't glaring as you go on. And potentially, if I can make a weakness a strength, And that's what we have seen with the Steelers. Defensively, they've gotten after the quarterback. They've shut teams down. They've been better in the red zone. They've been able to turn teams over more. And ever since we've had their offensive linemen say things we didn't hear them when they were talking about L. Bell. But I think around week number 4, Cameron Hayward, he said something.
It was right after week 4.
It was just a matter of fact of just shut up. We need to play better. And it was kind of, hell, I haven't heard that. It was kind of refreshing to come out of Pittsburgh, man. We hear a lot of backbiting. He said this, the coach
buy
this.
in or don't get on the field.
Yes. And that was basically a challenge to the defense to either listen to the coaches, buy into what they're doing, and let's buy into this brotherhood that we've had. And they have played that way. I thought Ben was spectacular. Not in the numbers, but watch the game. There were a couple opportunities he could have been knocked out of the game. He could have taken himself out of the game. But the overall grit and determination, that's why Ben is who he is. For a game like yesterday, a hard-fought game, he's getting hurt, got the wind knocked out of him, came back into the game. That's the reason why he's a special quarterback, and you can see it in yesterday's action, Nick.
If those comments by Cam Hayward were the line of demarcation, the stats say what you're saying is totally correct. Since that moment, up until that moment, the Steelers were allowing 29 points per game. Since then, 18. We're allowing 115 rushing. Since then, 65. We're allowing 305 passing. Since then, 210. Like, the defense all of a sudden is a plus for the Steelers. They haven't given up more than 21 points one time since that game on this 4-game winning streak. And so now the defense is shored up. We know who Big Ben is. James Conner is doing his very best Le'Veon Bell impersonation. And contrary to what people in Pittsburgh and nationally were saying through the first month of the season, they got one of the 5 best coaches in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is never going to let his team let go of the rope. Mike Tomlin has never let 1-2 turn into 3-7. That's why he's never had a season below 500. That's why this Steelers team every year is in contention, if not in the playoffs. They have excellent talent, they have excellent coaching, and the defense has found its way. I was very worried about the defense, because we saw this trend start the moment Ryan Shazier tragically was carted off the field. At the end of last year, the defense was bad, and the beginning of this year, the defense was bad. It's been so much better this last month.
Has James Conner surprised you with the production that he's had consistently?
Well, I started reading some of the stuff they were saying about him when we were getting ready for this year's holdout. Like, we knew this year's holdout would be an extended one, so you could start to see some of his skill set. The biggest problem is it's hard to give a guy credit or to anticipate the type of productivity when he's replacing one of the best all-purpose backs that we've ever seen. Like, oh, yeah, I expect this guy. I mean, I have high expectations for Barkley, but I don't expect him to still be able to produce like L. Bell has produced. So knowing the Pittsburgh, knowing how they're going to run their offense, no, I can't say I expected this much out of him, but he's really grown not only on me, but you can see how he's grown his game. His vision's gotten better. He's a lot more patient. He's better in blitz pickup. And obviously, he's won over the Pittsburgh Steelers by the volume of carries and touches they give him week in and week out.
And the Steelers, I give them a ton of credit because they had to go on this streak because now they got a quick turnaround. They have Carolina. Then they have back-to-back road games at Jacksonville, at Denver. Like, they couldn't go into this stretch of football limping into it. So they have a huge game Thursday night, but right now they look like the team that I think all of us thought they were at the beginning of the year, which is the clear favorites in the NFC North. And they avenged that game they lost to Baltimore in the beginning of the season. That one was in Pittsburgh. So you thought, oh, man, they might get swept by the Ravens. They didn't get the win in Baltimore.
If they do a normal Mike Tomlin type thing, say they go 7-1 the second half. Oh, Pittsburgh, oh, they're terrible. Oh, 12 wins. Right. Again. Like that. If they only win 6 games, they're going to win 11 games. So to speaking to what you're saying with Tomlin, Tomlin gets it done and is very underrated. Gets criticized more than he should in the job he does with that Pittsburgh organization. Someone
else getting it done coming up. Is this the best version of Cam that we have ever seen? That's next on First Things First. Thursday Night Football returns this week with a battle of NFL heavyweights as Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, and the Panthers battle Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and the Steelers. It all starts at 7:30 Eastern on Fox, NFL Network, and streaming on Prime Video. Back here with Chris Canty, we're talking Cam Newton and the Panthers. They kept their offense rolling, beating the Bucs 42-28. Cam threw for just under 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the team combined for 179 yards on the ground. The Panthers are now 6-2, winning 5 of their last 6. Chris Canty, what did Cam and the Panthers show you with their win over the Bucs?
Well, it shows me that this is a team that's starting to find their identity on the offensive side of the ball. Now, the Carolina Panthers under Ron Rivera are going to be a team that's led by their defense, and their defense is in the top 10 in takeaways. I think as a team, they're +8 on the season, which is 4th in the National Football League. But their offense, ever since that 4th quarter in Philadelphia, and I know you mentioned this, Nick, in Week 7, I mean, they've been on a roll. They had 3 consecutive scoring drives in that game to be able to beat the Eagles on the road. Impressive win. Same thing when they were at home against the Baltimore Ravens. After their first offensive possession, they had 4 consecutive scoring drives in the first half of that game. They end up ahead at the half 24-7, and then they did the same thing against the Tampa Bay Bucs. Now, their defense put them in position. Eric Reed got the turnover, and on their second offensive possession, they were able to capitalize. They punched it in from the 10-yard line, but that was in the process of, again, having 4 consecutive scoring drives. So this team, when they get another team on the ropes, they happen to put their foot on the gas, they get in a rhythm, and ultimately that was too much for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to overcome.
And where Cam has been better than he's ever been is not just completion percentage, as you pointed out earlier, C, but he's taking care of the football at, for him, a historic rate. 4 giveaways total through 9 games for the Carolina Panthers. Through 8 games, through 9 weeks for the Carolina Panthers.
4 interceptions, right?
Right, exactly. No fumbles, 4 picks. For if the defense, we know what the Panthers defense is going to give you most of the time. But if the offense isn't creating extra possessions, the defense has to defend. And the offense is as efficient as any Panthers offense I've seen. Not as many big plays as the second half of 2015, Cam's MVP season, but efficient with McCaffrey, with Cam completing a high percent of his passes, with a legitimate running game, which they've always had in Carolina. This is how a team becomes one of the 5 or 6 best teams in football, which right now, if you're talking about the best teams in the league, you've got to include the Panthers after that very top tier of Chiefs, Rams, and Saints.
Completion percentage, taking care of the football. CC, what specifically has changed with Cam Newton in his decision-making and in his selection with the ball that's helped him achieve these things so far?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wouldn't say it's one thing, because when you've seen the type of changes with a player like Cam, who has had so much success, the first thing it comes with, not only trying to make changes, is a buy-in. That, you know, sir, I'm not who I think I am. Like, I have some real weaknesses. To me, like, I believe, like, Steve Kerr doesn't get enough credit what he does with Steph Curry. Because for me, I don't believe if he didn't play with Steve Kerr that he would be a guy turn the ball over 8 times a game. His shots would be erratic. He would shoot from anywhere on the court. But I believe that with Steve Kerr said, listen, I need you to be efficient. I need a little less sauce, less turnovers, and I'll give you a few of them crazy shots. You can't shoot all those. And I think that's what Norv Turner, that's what Ron Rivera has done with Cam Newton. First is the buy-in, the person with the talent. Do I really actually need to get better? And you can see that. And I talked to someone on the staff there in Carolina, and they thought this offseason, Cam, the buy-in and the focus on what Norv was telling him to do, which was totally different than what Mike Shula, the former coordinator who's now coaching with the Giants, was telling him to do. So the athlete's the number one thing. They have taken away some of the long shots, the long balls down, and made his passing more concise, and his fundamentals hold up throughout the game, even when he's under duress. So those are things that I see that making Cam more efficient in 2018, Chris.
And CC, you mentioned the buy-in, right? I think it's easier for Cam to buy in once he sees the commitment from the organization, because what have they done the past several drafts? They've invested in the skill positions around Cam Newton. Christian McCaffrey, a top 10 pick. DJ Moore, Devin Funchess, a high second-round pick. Curtis Samuel, a second-round pick. So we're putting all these weapons in place to take some of the heavy lifting off of Cam Newton. So get the ball to your playmakers and let them do their job. But when it calls for it, understanding through the flow of the game when it's necessary for you to take over and make those splash plays that we've seen from Cam in the past.
The way they're playing right now, would you consider them a legit Super Bowl contender?
I think they are, and I think that this is a championship organization. They do things right. Nick, you and I have been talking about, even from the change in ownership, the new owner they have, where'd he come from? Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep.
He owned a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he's trying to run them a lot like the Rooney family has run that organization.
And the Panthers are trying to win. Like, that might
Every
seem,
year.
Every year, and that
Yes.
might seem silly, but you say this all the time, you're right. There's only about 12 to 14 teams in the league that are truly doing everything
Yeah, the rest of them just
win.
trying to make money.
Trying to make money and keep butts in the seats, and if we win, it's a bonus. When the Panthers' new owner decides, I don't care what flat comes with it, there is a good football player available in Eric Reid. We have a position of need there. Not only am I going to sign him, but Eric Reid did an interview with the team website this week about his kneeling during the anthem. We're going to embrace everything around him. I learned something I didn't know. Eric Reid's mom was in the military. He's got 10 members of his family that were in the military. And what does Eric Reid do for them? Oh, he had a very big pick when the game was not decided yesterday, early on, like you mentioned, that he almost returned for a touchdown. So the Panthers are doing everything they can to move in the right direction, not move backwards. And I also want to give Ron Rivera credit. We do this weird thing with coaches, which is, aside from Belichick and Sean Payton and Pete Carroll, it feels like, we only talk about coaches when they stink, or when they're not good or underachieving. Ron Rivera has been a consistent force in this league and in that locker room through the ebbs and flows of camp. And now you are getting the best out of Cam. You're getting the best out of that team. And they are, in my eyes, without question, one of the 6 best teams in the league right now.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's going to keep this team there at the end is their ability to run the football and stop the run. If you can do those two things well, once we start getting into later November and into December, when the weather changes, you still have an opportunity to compete at a high level because you can control the line of scrimmage.
All right. Let's get back to the NFL. Two great quarterbacks facing off in Foxborough.
Lord help me with that.
Game tied. It's 17 in the fourth when Aaron Jones fumbles, and, man, that proved to be costly. Later in the fourth, Julian Edelman finds James White on the double pass. Not too bad. Pretty look from the Patriots. Some creativity.
Only the Patriots can execute
later,
that good.
New England up 24-17. See there. Tom Brady finds Josh Gordon, 55-yard touchdown. Brady finished with just under 300 yards and a touchdown as the Pats win their 6th in a row. Packers fall to 3-4-1. And here's Brady after the game.
We made some plays in the fourth quarter when we needed to. And anytime you beat a good football team, it feels good. So 7-2 is it's a long ways from 1-2 where we were. We strung together a lot of wins playing good football, and we got to keep it going.
We're not hitting on all cylinders. We're hurting ourselves with negative yards plays and missed throws and turnovers at the wrong time and not being on the same page too many times. Whether I'm missing a throw or we're not in the spot I think we're going to be at, it's happening in the worst times. When we have to play our best in those crunch times, we haven't been playing our best.
Chris Canty, what was the key to the Patriots beating the Packers and doing it without Gronk and Sony Michel as well?
Well, before we even get into that, Sarah, Cece, I got to ask you this. Was Tom Brady throwing to Julian Edelman on that last one, or was he throwing to Josh Gordon? Because it looked like he was throwing to Julian Edelman.
It looked like Edelman thought he was throwing.
It looked like he was throwing to Julian Edelman.
That's a very good point.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But, I guess you get a lot of luck when you have Tom Brady and Bill Belichick at the top of your organization. And that's exactly what happened yesterday in the fourth quarter. The Patriots wait for you to make the mistakes, and then they capitalize on them. That's exactly what happened. They had one of their guys, Lawrence guy, forced a fumble on Aaron Jones. They were able to take advantage of it. Double pass that led to the touchdown. And then, of course, being able to force that 3-and-out, which was huge by their defense. Trey Flowers and Adrian Claiborne combined and getting the sack on Aaron Rodgers. They got to punt it away. Guess what they do? They come back down. Josh Gordon, touchdown pass for 55 yards. That's the difference between the Patriots winning and losing games, being able to take advantage of the miscues of the opposing team better than any other team in the National Football League.
One thing that you pointed out from the beginning was we know that Sony Michel wasn't there. We know that Gronk wasn't there. So what does Belichick do? How do I replace that productivity? I'm not going to be able to do it with power, force, athleticism, so I'm just going to do it with the scheme. I'm getting ready to steal 7 points.
First drive of the game.
Green Bay wins the opening kickoff. They defer. Give it to New England. Oh, okay. That little undersized nickel defense you've been trying to play with that you thought you had success last week playing against the Rams, I'm getting ready to make you play with them this whole first drive. Why? Because I'm getting ready to go at a speed that you're not even going to be allowed to substitute. And I believe that was a huge change of pace, how we're going to start the game. So you know what Green Bay did? They tried to figure out for the whole first half. Now, what do they do when they go back to this? They didn't come back to it anymore. So now they waste your time in you trying to adjust, and then they go on to something else. Cordell Patterson, Eric Mangini told us, man, sometimes the best part of invention is when you're forced into something. And they were forced to try to find another tailback, and, man, they gave him the football. He's got one good skill, and that's running with the football. He cannot catch. Him recognizing coverage, no, his hands are suspect. How do I know that? Minnesota Vikings drafted him in the first round. He ultimately went to the Raiders, and they couldn't utilize him there besides being a special teams player. But Bill Belichick, the best coach in football, scheme. I'm going to get 7 points easily by going at a warp speed, and then I'm going to put a wide receiver at tailback, and I'm going to let him touch the ball 10 times and see how you like that.
I mean, that was the key. Listen, Brady was unbelievable in the fourth quarter, and we can go over those numbers later. But the difference in this game was Bill Belichick in the week leading up to the game and the coaching staff. This was a vintage Patriots performance. It's games like this that make Brady versus Belichick a real debate. Typically, when you have the greatest quarterback of all time, he's always going to be more important than the coach. But when he's paired with a coach who during the week can realize probably aren't going to have Gronk, probably aren't going to have Sony Michel, going to have to find a way to take advantage of the Packers' weakness in the run game, going to have to find a way to take advantage of the Packers' weakness in their secondary. Now they don't have Ha-Ha Clinton Dix. And they out-schemed the Packers through the first three quarters, and then not surprisingly, they didn't make a mistake late. The opponent did, and that's how it becomes a two-touchdown win.
And, Sarah, we were talking earlier, talking about, well, what's the big difference in this Pats team compared to some of the other teams? How they played last night is how they won 3 Super Bowls. Now, they won the other 2 through Tom Brady. But how did they win those first 3? Exactly like that. Field position, win the turnover margin, win time possession, and come up with a couple tricks. One being the no huddle, one being a trick play. Those are the things, a turnover in the fourth quarter. If you're talking about how do they beat people, that's exactly how they have beaten people for a number of years, Chris.
You have to have a near flawless performance if you're going to go into Foxborough and win. Now, I've won with the New York Giants and I've lost with the Baltimore Ravens. And the one thing that I can say is if you give them opportunities, especially late in the game, they're going to capitalize on them. And Bill Belichick coach teams, they usually don't make those types of mistakes, especially in the critical phases of the game, third down, end of half, end of game, and especially in the fourth quarter. And that's the difference in this team and why we always see them make an appearance in the AFC Championship game.
I understand that the week leading up to this game was all about the two quarterbacks against each other. They had the GOATs during the broadcast wearing the jerseys. They had the second greatest basketball player of all time do a little promo video promoting the game. They did a lot of things promoting the Brady-Rodgers competition. So let's just look at that for a moment. Through the first 3 quarters, it was a no contest going to Aaron Rodgers. Through the first 3 quarters, Rodgers had him beat in everything. Brady had 6 straight incompletions at one point, near a career high. Brady was not sharp. And then what happened in the fourth quarter? Oh, that's right. Tom Brady looked like Tom Brady in the fourth quarter. That 158.3, that's a perfect quarterback rating.
Yes.
No mistakes, no incompletions. Rodgers, he mentioned in his press conference, he missed a couple throws. You guys said a skinny post, Equanimous St. Brown.
St. Brown, yep.
And then he pointed out himself a pass he missed on second down when they were down 7 to Devontae Adams. Like, he wasn't quite as sharp. Now, I don't think that's an indictment on Rodgers, but it is a testament to Brady and who Brady has been these last, 15 to 18 years, which is a fourth quarter killer.
Rodgers in postgame talked about their issues in consistency in communication. Now that they're 3-4-1, do you believe that the Packers can bounce back from this?
No, and I don't think the Packers general manager believes that either. That's why they were sellers at the trade deadline. I think that was an honest assessment by BG of where his team was at. And the other team that was on the winning side of this thing, that's why they made the moves that they made before the trade deadline, acquiring the pieces that they needed, recognizing that Tom Brady had a lack of weapons early in the first month of the season. They had to put more around him in order to get this offense on track. That's exactly what they did. And so I feel like this is the point in the season where one of those teams is ascending and the other team is dealing with the reality that they're probably not going to qualify for the postseason this year.
They got to go 7-1 in the final 8. If I mean, that's what it is.
Is it going to happen?
I don't think it's going to happen. I won't eliminate them from it. But, I mean, but that's what they're at. When you're at 3-4-1, you got to get to 10 wins. The tie is at this point essentially a loss. So you're going to have to go 7-1 the rest of the way. Now, the last 5 games of their season, there's some mostly winnable football games. They're mostly against losing teams except for the Bears, and the Bears, to me, are a bit of a fraudulent 5-win team right now. But Aaron Rodgers said it after that comeback where they needed a comeback against San Francisco. We got a bye, and then we got a tough schedule coming up. They were in position to win both of these games. A fumble on the kickoff deprived them of an opportunity to win the game last week against the Rams. A fumble in the fourth quarter in a 17-17 game deprived them of their best opportunity to win yesterday. It wasn't their only opportunity, but their best opportunity. They are now Rodgers never been in this position. Never once in his career as a starter has his team been below 500 at the midway point. That's where they find themselves right now.
They got to be able to run the football. I don't care if the kid fumbles. Aaron Jones, you got to be able to give him the football. If they're going to be able to get themselves in position, what was one of the bright spots to me, that was his ability to be able to run the football. They're not going to be able to be effective on the road unless you have a running game. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers, can they go 7-1? Can they make some damage in the playoff? I don't think this team is strong enough. And as you talked about with the general manager being sellers at the trade deadline compared to buyers, and also alluding that he was going to participate in next year in free agency. Well, that doesn't do an awful lot for this year's team. So I don't think this Pats is the best version of the Pats that we've seen the last several years.
And I know they could have used Clinton Dix yesterday, particularly after their safety got thrown out of the game. Candy, we haven't talked about this. On the ejection. Yeah. You've been in a lot of tough football games, hand fighting with offensive line.
That was a bad call by the Zebras. You can't eject that guy in that situation.
Right.
You can't do it.
Like, listen, it should be a flag. It's always a flag if you get caught slapping a guy in the head. But see, what's one of the reasons you played football instead of basketball?
Oh, man, because you could assault someone on a regular basis and not get arrested.
Yeah, ain't no foul outs in football.
No.
Physicality is praised.
And that is such vintage Patriots. I'm going to do something against the rules. I'm going to shove you after the whistle when the teacher's back is turned. I'm going to bait you into something, and then, look.
Oh,
hey, flag. Excuse me, sir.
Him
sir?
and Edelman, oh, man, they lead the world. and definitely, look at him. He did it.
It was a huge ejection, given the fact they didn't have Clinton Dix. Like, this was...
Clinton Dix didn't help to watch the Redskins not much.
No, I understand that, but he would have helped. They needed depth yesterday. They needed personnel yesterday. They had injuries. They had an ejection. This was a critical game. The Packers, and even if they go 7-1, every playoff game is going to be on the road. The last road game this team won was December 10th in Cleveland in overtime last season.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So, even if they get in the tournament, they got to figure out what the hell's happening to them on the road, what's happening to their pass defense on the road. That I don't see a fix coming for anytime soon.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.